This episode, we're talking about making your Vue.js applications Turbolinks compatible. So this process is actually exactly the same as what we went through in a previous episode where we made simple MDE compatible with Turbolinks. What we have to do is we listen for the Turbolinks load event. When that happens, we use that to initialize Vue.js. And then before we go to the next page, we want to tear down Vue so that when the caching happens with Turbolinks, we can clear up the Vue app, replace it back with the original element that was on the page that we mounted the Vue app into, and then Turbolinks will cache that properly and our navigation and everything, whether it's through link clicking through Turbolinks or it's the browser back and forward buttons, all of those should still work. And so that's what we have to do in this episode. So let's take a look at the basic Vue application that we have that comes out of the box with Webpacker. We're gonna use this as our example and show you how we can make this compatible with Turbolinks. So this app is super straightforward. It adds an event listener when the DOM content is loaded. We initialize Vue and we print out the app to the console. And so that's as simple as it is. It has a single file template for the app itself, which just is a div with the ID of app, and it puts a message onto the page. So I've changed this a little bit so we show the current time on the page, and that's going to give us the ability to check to see if Vue actually re-rendered or not. So we'll be able to watch that timestamp and make sure that that updated. So of course, the obvious first thing that we need to do is change this over to Turbolinks load, because that is going to make sure that whenever you navigate to another page, this will initialize Vue again, which of course that doesn't happen normally without Turbolinks load, because that would only happen and fire the DOM content loaded that single time when you load the page. So let's take a look at this. We have a page here that has the element with the ID of hello that initializes this application. If we go back and we hit show again, it does work, and pay attention to the timestamp here. We're at 55 seconds. If we come back, it is now 02, and all of that is updating properly. However, if we were to hit back in the back button, that timestamp has not changed. So that's actually a Turbolinks caching issue that we have to address. What has happened is that Turbolinks cached the HTML, the final HTML, when you navigate it away. And of course, because we did that and we didn't clean up the Vue application, we don't have the original div with the ID of hello on it anymore. So if we were to inspect the Vue source, we have this div ID of hello on this page. Turbolinks has cached it though, and the cache version of it is actually the Vue HTML. So the way that Vue initializes is it goes and looks for that tag that you specified in your Vue initializer. So I have ID of hello, and the Vue app looks for the ID of hello, and it takes and removes that item and replaces it with the Vue application. So one cheat that you can do is you can force that ID on your Vue application's parent to have the exact same ID of hello, and that can make it so that you would remove the original item, replace it with one that looks very similar that has the same matcher, and that can work as a solution for this, but not every time you're gonna have the exact same HTML layouts. So we're not gonna use that as our solution for this, because that might change and you might be mounting a Vue application that you didn't write, in which case you wouldn't have the HTML layout or whatever for that. So we're not going to use that solution, and that doesn't work with some of the custom element stuff or whatever. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be building a mix-in for Turbolinks, or for Vue, that makes it compatible with Turbolinks. So we're going to basically set up a couple event handlers so that before cache, we're going to clean up Vue, and Vue is going to remember the original element and then replace it on the page before Turbolinks goes and caches that HTML. So keep in mind when we go through this, I'm just explaining how all of this works. I've actually created a node module with a friend of mine that we have made so that you can just include this with Yarn and then include that as a mix-in inside your Vue app, which I'll show you at the end, and you don't have to worry about any of this. All you're gonna have to do is make sure that you add the event listener here at the top and wrap your Vue code and then include that mix-in, but I will mention that later. So what we have to do is we have to add a document.add event listener to Turbolinks before cache. And so this is going to be the function that we want to clean up that Vue app. So we have reference to that app variable, and this is going to be what we need to destroy. So one of the things that we can do is we can say app.destroy, which is the function that comes from Vue.js, which basically tells it, hey, turn off all of the Vue functionality, but that doesn't actually clean up their HTML. That makes this a pretty good start where we can go turn off the application whenever Turbolinks is beginning to navigate to another page. But this is going to be something that we still need to clean up that HTML. Now, one thing we can do is use some of those events inside of the Vue app where we can have before mount. This can be a function that you can use to define some code that runs before the Vue.js application mounts, which gives us access to the original element, and then when it mounts, that's when the HTML actually gets modified to the Vue application. So here we can say this.original element, or whatever. We can say that is this.el.outer HTML, and so that's going to save this outer HTML, the actual element itself, into a temporary variable while this Vue application is up and running. And then later, when we have destroyed that Vue application, we can then go replace this.el.outer HTML equals this.original element. So what this will do is say, hey, let's take the Vue application that you've got, let's take the HTML for that and replace it with the old one. So we'll take the old one, we'll cache it to a variable, and then we'll take that, and once Vue has been destroyed, we'll go replace it with the original, and that will set it up so that Turbolinks can properly cache the original HTML that Rails had rendered, and that way our Vue application is effectively idempotent. It worked, we destroyed it, we replaced everything, and it went exactly back to normal when we destroyed it. So this is gonna give us that ability to go and have this app cleaned up automatically for us. So if we go here and we click back and then we click back in the browser, we're gonna see that that timestamp has now been updated. So let's pay attention to it this time. We see 35 seconds. And we hit back and now we see 43. So this is great, but you're starting to notice there's a few errors coming up in the console, and that is because when we go navigate away, well, number one, we can't find that element of hello, and when we hit back, it's trying to run that before cache callback, but we've already destroyed that Vue app. Plus, we've got this constant here, and this should be a variable, because it's not really constant since we are initializing it at every single time that Turbolinks loads. So we really want this to be a variable instead of a constant, since that will change. So this, we actually should probably pull this Turbolinks before cache out to its own function. So if we said function destroy Vue, we can then give this a name and have that call the app.destroy. And we can change it to this.destroy if we say that this actually gets done inside the before mount. So what we can do here is we can say, let's move this code around so that it's organized a little bit better. When the Vue application starts up, it can initialize an event listener for the before cache event. Then we can have destroy Vue called, but we can bind this on it so that the context of the variable this will actually be the Vue application. So scoping in JavaScript is different than what you might be used to in Ruby. So what we're doing is we're basically saying, hey, this callback is running the Vue app. It gives us the variable this as the Vue app, and if we call bind this it's going to then set up the destroy Vue function so that this also references the Vue app. That's going to set everything up pretty well, but we should also make sure to clean up and remove the event listener for the Turbolinks before cache in case you were going to another page that didn't actually load the Vue app. So we don't want this event listener to fire unless we actually initialize a Vue application. So we have that set up so that it will create this function and then run that accordingly every time. There's one last thing I want to do here, and that is I want to grab that document.get element by ID. I want to grab that hello element that we're mounting on. So I want to check if that element is present before we initialize Vue, so that way this doesn't set up and create an event listener and it doesn't attempt to load Vue or any of that stuff unless that element actually exists. So this is going to set it up so that we don't even try to load Vue if that page doesn't have this specific Vue application tag. So page 1 does have it, but this one does not. Page 2 doesn't. Page 3 does not. And you can see that there are no errors anymore. And if we hit back in the browser and go all the way back to page 1, we'll see that we now get 4752, and we can go navigate to any of these other pages and we'll get 4759 and so on. So this is all working correctly now. We have a fully functional 2 callbacks inside of the Vue app that take care of some of the Turbolinks lifecycle stuff, and we also have some of the Turbolinks lifecycle stuff wrapping the Vue code, so it's all encompassed pretty nicely. Now, this is kind of annoying to have to set up yourself every single time, and so what we've done is we've created a Vue Turbolinks node module that you can include in your application and use that as a mix-in so that you don't have to define any of these callbacks inside of your Vue app or the destroy Vue function. So we have provided that for you, and let me show you how to use that. So first things first, we need to go into our application and run yard add Vue Turbolinks. So this is the node module that we created for that. So that package is what you want to add to your package.json. This is going to then give you that package. It depends upon Vue and adds that to your app. So then I'm going to run the bin webpack dev server, start that up again, and then we are going to be able to delete that and import Turbolinks adapter from Vue Turbolinks. And so this is just a reference to the package, and you can import Turbolinks adapter. And then you can get rid of these callbacks and say mixins and give it an array of Turbolinks adapter. And that should be all you have to do. So if we refresh our page, we should see that that works. We get this to run at 5009. We can go back, go to show. We can go back to that page. We get 5016. We can go to another one. We can hit back in the browser, and that is all being updated correctly. So that Turbolinks mixin cleans this up quite a lot so that you have no reason to define those callbacks yourself. They can get taken care of. And as we go and maybe improve this or add new compatibility things or whatever the case is, we can continue maintaining that node package for you, and then you can update that alongside of your Vue application, and your Vue.js stuff doesn't really have to care too much about being compatible with Turbolinks. So you will still need to run these couple lines so that your Vue code only runs when Turbolinks load runs, and you want to make sure that if this is not a Vue app that runs on every single page, then you want to check and make sure that that matching element does exist on the page every time before you try to load the Vue app. So that's it for this episode. I wanted to walk you through the process of making Vue Turbolinks compatible. It's very similar to what we did with any other JavaScript library. So we basically just have to say, well, our JavaScript that we want to add to the page, like Vue even, or React or whatever. And this is probably something that we want to initialize after Turbolinks loads, and then we want to tear it down before Turbolinks caches the page so that it can be properly re-rendered next time we visit that page. And this is the process of going through that. So I basically took advantage of some of the Vue.js lifecycle events, but really the truth was that we're using the Turbolinks load in order to initialize the Vue lifecycle stuff, and then it set up the Turbolinks before cache so that it can destroy it before it gets cached and Turbolinks navigates to the next page. So all of this works really well, and so far we haven't run into any problems. But if you want to use this and you do run into anything, let me know. We'll have a link to the GitHub repo for the Vue Turbolinks package, and you can submit issues there. Until then, I will talk to you in the next episode. Peace.